4th and 22 from the 43-yard line. Only 3 seconds left on the clock, so barring a penalty, that'll be the final play of the game. All Hogs come to the line. Shotgun formation. Trips to the right-hand side. Smith all alone in the backfield. There's a snap. Pressure coming off the left-hand side. Smith fills it, running to his right. Fires it deep downfield to the corner of the end zone. Touchdown, All Hogs! Smith under tremendous pressure connects with Andy Hodges, who's able to stay just inside the line in the back corner of the end zone. And are you hearing this? It's pure pandemonium in the SlopHouse, and I don't blame them one bit.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a very special edition of the SlopHouse. I'm your host, Kent Smith, and joining me once again from his humble abode up in Fayetteville, the old gray hog himself, Mr. Andy Hodges. Andy, we just got through watching Alabama take on Cincy. What's your initial impression of this?
Typical Alabama game. They just let Cincinnati. They didn't let them hang around. Alabama wasn't going to do anything to create mistakes, which was the only way Cincinnati had a chance at all in this game coming in. Alabama just, I think I made the comparison when we were talking off the air. Alabama plays football the way Muhammad Ali used to box, and most of our audience is not old enough to remember him. But it was jab, 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 right cross, down goes the guy. Jab, jab, jab. Combination, down he goes. Then jab, 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 jab. Left hook, down he goes. He's out. Game over. That's the way Alabama plays. Brian Robinson had a great day running the ball. The Alabama offensive line, I think, has a chip on its shoulder. People said this was the worst offensive line under Nick Saban. It may have been earlier in the year. They may have had their problems on the offensive and defensive side, but Saban got them ready to play a playoff game. And when you come into a playoff game against a Nick Saban team, until somebody beats him, I'm not picking anybody against Alabama. I'll say that.
Yeah, I definitely think your observation is right. My wife and I were sitting talking about, as we watched it, we were like, this is the same Alabama game that we see time and time again, where it's, you're sitting there and you feel like you're still in the game. But then you get to the fourth quarter and you look up and you don't even know how it happened, but you're down 24-7, 31-10 or whatever, and it's over. And it was just such a slow, steady thing that happens to you that you just don't realize it. And you get to the end of the game and it doesn't feel like a blowout as you're going through it. But then when it's over, it is a blowout. And, I was looking back at, this is their 6th semifinal playoff win in a row. And I wanted to kind of put this in perspective because I think some people are going to look at it and say, Cincinnati, they didn't belong there or whatever. But I'm looking at the history here, in this 6-game winning streak, you've got 2015, Alabama 38, Michigan State 0. 2016, Alabama 24, Washington 7. 2017, Alabama 24, Clemson 6. 2018 is the anomaly, Alabama 45, Oklahoma 34.
An 11-point wins an anomaly. There you go.
And then you got 2020, they're 31-14 over Notre Dame in a game that honestly they could have scored 100 if they wanted to. And then this year you got the 27-6, and it's literally par for the course. But the one thing that as I look back at it, to me, this is the second best performance against Alabama in the semifinals during that time, because there were chances for Cincinnati to actually stay in the game if they just had some breaks. But if you're an underdog, especially against Alabama, if you don't have breaks, and those breaks did not fall Cincinnati's way. Every time there was a chance for a break to happen, it 100% went Alabama's way. And you could not beat Alabama in the playoffs if you don't catch those breaks.
Cincinnati was not ready for the moment. Let's put it that way. You could see it at the beginning of the game. Those guys were kind of awestruck just being in that environment to begin with. Cincinnati got hit in the mouth on the opening drive. When Alabama took the ball and went down the field in the opening drive, I said at the time, well, this is over with. because Alabama's just going to beat them up. And about halfway through this, we got to the end of the third quarter, and I said, Alabama's just going to get tired of playing with these boys and just put it away. And that's exactly what they did. The defense, the thing that Nick Saban teams do, even in blowouts like this, the defense never lets up. They don't relax. Cincinnati, by midway through the third quarter, was ready for that game to be over with, because Alabama's line was on both sides of the ball was just beating the hell out of them. I mean, those guys were clutching, they're bent over clutching. The big bellies were heaving in and out. They were ready for that game to be over and them to get out of Dallas alive.
Yeah, there was a time where momentum was kind of on Cincinnati's side early in that third quarter. They had the big play where they almost go down and score on the first drive of the half, and I'll talk about that here in just a minute. And then later on they have to punt and they get a really big pop, and then Bryce Young ends up throwing an interception. And then from that point on, that was where Alabama's defense just decided, okay, enough is enough. This is over. And you saw that attitude change, and it got violent. And from that point on, it didn't matter what Cincinnati tried to do. There weren't going to be any breaks or anything. Like you said, they were going to be lucky to get off the field because the defense was done with it. They weren't having any more.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and this is what I've told some people. I've told some coaches at Arkansas this. You're still trying to play college football. Alabama is running a mini NFL program. It's run like an NFL team, an NFL organization, and everybody else in the SEC is still trying to play college football, and they act surprised. Georgia is starting to make roads to get there. Problem is they have to recruit too much against Alabama. And one of Alabama's main recruiting bases is in Atlanta, Georgia. So, I mean, they're butting heads with Alabama in their backyard. It's the equivalent of Alabama coming in and getting the best players in Texas every year out of Austin and College Station, Texas. Well, they don't do that. They get a player here or there from Texas, but they don't come in and get the best players every year out of Texas. Alabama gets the best players in Alabama and Florida and Georgia every year, because they know if they want to go to the National Football League, that's the step that they take, is go to Alabama if you have the opportunity. I mean, Arkansas, since Nick Saban's been coaching there, of course, the Razorbacks have never beaten Alabama with Nick Saban coaching them. I think there have been 2 players, Arkansas high school players, go to Alabama. Neither one of them did anything. It's a different environment. It's one that most kids are not accustomed to. It takes too long to adapt to it. By the time you adapt, Saban's gotten tired of you taking up a roster spot and not contributing, and he's asked you to move on down the road. Until the rest of the SEC learns, you can't play college football and expect to win a championship against Alabama. You've got to play NFL style as an organization.
Well, Nick Saban's got a recruiting line that he can use that nobody else can use, and that's he got to Alabama in 2007, and every single recruiting class he's had at Alabama has won a national title. The 2009 class won 3 of them. If you're another school and Nick Saban's standing there and you're trying to compete with him and he delivers that line, unless the kid is looking and going, man, I don't know if I could play at Alabama, you're probably not getting him, because if that kid wants to be a winner, that's where he's going.
Same way as used to be in my day, coaches trying to recruit against Barry Switzer at Oklahoma. If Switzer wanted you, the odds are he was going to get you. It doesn't matter where you were from, California, Texas, wherever, Arkansas. If Switzer wanted you, he's probably going to get you. I mean, Switzer would walk into the school, and he was much more flamboyant than Saban is. Switzer walk into these schools waving the national championship rings around going, where are you? You want one of these? You want one of these? Well, you sure ain't going to get it going to Texas A&M or wherever. Saban's the same way, except Saban's got more titles, put more players in the National Football League than even Oklahoma did back in those days. And it's something that nobody else has been able to recruit against. And I don't think anybody else is. If Saban wins the national title this year and announces he's going to retire. I don't care who comes in. It's going to take 10 years for the rest of the SEC to catch up where they can consistently beat Alabama and keep them out of the title picture. Arkansas fans would be deliriously happy if things bottomed out like it did at Alabama when Bear Bryant quit. I mean, don't forget Bill Curry got fired winning 10 games a year because he couldn't beat Auburn. At Arkansas, you want to compete with Alabama, you got to start acting like Alabama, where winning is the priority from the top to the bottom. Every person in the athletic department, in the offices, is concerned about winning. You don't get pats on the back for coming in second. Well, that's what they get in Arkansas now. They get pats on the back when they finish fourth.
So taking it back to today's game, I do want to touch on a few of these plays that kind of ended up making a difference. Like I said, you got to have a break here and there. Alabama came out and they definitely set the tone. They were just going to run the ball. And I made a note early on that just basically said, if Bryce Young throws for more than 50 yards this game, it's a mistake. But then Cincinnati responds, and I was surprised by that. They drove down the field, and then they had 2 plays in a row where they had guys that were open for touchdowns. The first one, To'o knocks the ball in the air, which happened a lot tonight. They got a lot of balls knocked down at the line of scrimmage and things like that. And on the next one, the receiver he doesn't get his hands up fast enough and drops the pass. So at that point, you would be looking at 7-7 and a much different game. And they end up having to go for the field goal. And then later on in the first half, they throw a pass out to Jamison Williams, and Williams it's on 3rd down. He's 3 yards short of the touchdown, and he starts just falling backward, just stumbling backward. And all the defensive guy has to do is smack him in the back. And then they're going to get the punt back probably at midfield and have a shot at least getting close enough to get a field goal. The defensive guy never moves. He just watches Jamison Williams just stumble his way backward into a first down that should have never happened. So there's a whole nother, little hidden play right there. And then not long after that, you've got the field goal where Reichard, they turn the laces the wrong way, which I've never understood that, but I guess it handles.
That didn't cause him to miss the field goal. I can tell you what caused him to miss the field goal. Laces have nothing to do with it. That's BS. That's coming from an old kicker. That's an excuse for failure. What that happened on that one, the holder tilted the ball too forward to the holder, and it went dead left because his technique was fine. The foot was pointed in the proper direction. And if everything's left up to the kicker, you can look at the plant foot and the direction that the plant foot's going, and the ball will go in that direction. This time the plant foot was pointed in the proper direction. The ball went left. You could see in a close-up that ESPN had of the play, the holder tilted the ball slightly, about 1/4 of an inch toward the holder, and that's just enough to kick it about 10 feet wide to the left. People blame the kickers. There's 2 other people that touch the ball before the kicker ever gets to.
So we're at 7 points left on the table, possibly more, because they should have been able to get the ball back and possibly go down for a field goal on that one. That's 10 points. Then the last play of the half, Ritter steps up in the pocket. He's got an open lane to where he can run at least into field goal range. He's probably not going to get the first down, but he can at least run into field goal range. And his guard steps over into the running lane, and he runs into the guard. And so instead of being able to get a shot at a field goal, they don't get to do anything with it. And so you're looking at, you don't know that they hit that, but that's 13 points you could possibly end up with there. And then they go down to start the second half. They're deep in Bama territory. They've got a clear pass interference against Alabama that would have ended up setting up 1st and goal. But the quarterback throws the ball out of the back of the end zone, 10 yards past his receiver. And so if he just gets it to where it looks like it could have been caught, they get pass interference, they're 1st and goal, and they got at least a shot at a touchdown. And so they're just leaving points on the board all over, and you can't do that against Alabama. The question is, with the 2 teams that they've got as possibilities, Georgia and Michigan, which one of those 2 teams is not going to leave those opportunities out there, not going to waste all those points that they could have?
I don't think either one of them would leave the opportunity. Look, Cincinnati was not ready for the moment. They thought they were. They talked about it, but they were just happy to be there. They said from Dallas after Christmas, they were just happy to be there. Alabama went there to win the ball game. They didn't care about looking pretty. They didn't care about compiling stats. Alabama went there to win the game. Cincinnati went there to prove a group of 5 school could get there. Cincinnati has not played in enough games to where they have to be that sharp. Most of their schedule, they had to be sharp for what, 2 regular season games? The rest of them they could just beat with better talent. And Cincinnati has some good players, but they hadn't played at that level. And when you're playing in a playoff game, the margin of error becomes so small that you can't make those same mistakes that you made against an SMU, against people like that, and you can still recover from it. No, there's no recovering. Cincinnati was just ready for that game to be over with because they were tired of getting leaned on by them big old boys from Alabama. And you could just look at the two teams physically. You pointed out some good things about possible momentum switches and stuff. Now, to counter that, I say, who says Bill O'Brien would have called the same game if it was that close from an offensive standpoint? Would they have just kept turning around and handing it to Brian Robinson if it'd been close and they had to? Because when Alabama passed the ball, they did it pretty well. I don't think anybody's going to stop Alabama from another national title, and there will be more mounting cries to do something about the college football playoff. I mean, this was great, Cincinnati getting in, because if you want to see expansion in the college football playoff, putting Cincinnati in, and then what happened tonight, the way they got dominated physically in the trenches, it's the fastest way to get a bigger playoff in. Why waste time putting Cincinnati in? They can't play up front.
Well, nobody else can do it against Alabama either. I mean, we just went through the list. If you're looking at it that way, why put Michigan State in? Why put Washington in? Why put Clemson in? Because the same thing happened to every single one of those teams. So
I think you just put Ole Miss in and let Lane Kiffin just have it flung around the field, just throwing it all over the field. I mean, you're going to get beat anyway.
I will say last year you could have got A&M in, and they would have had to play A&M, and that's about the only team I can think of that could have competed with them last year.
By the way, Georgia just ran a trick play against Michigan in the second semifinal game with the running back throwing a halfback pass to a wide open receiver who was in the end zone. I don't even think the defenders were in Dade County. I mean, he was that wide open.
So we're going to close it with this. All of Arkansas got to see Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati's opens in Fayetteville next year. Now, it's not going to be the same Cincinnati team. They got 36 seniors, and they're not going to lose all of them because of the super senior rule and all that. But it's going to be a very different team. Can Arkansas out physical Cincinnati and kind of push them around the same way that Alabama was able to do?
I don't think so. I don't know Cincinnati's personnel well enough to say what they've got coming back. But Cincinnati is a group of 5 school for a reason. Yes, they have some scholarship players. Yes, they can be a problem, as Notre Dame found out. I don't know what Cincinnati's got coming back to be projecting what's going to happen in the opening game next year when we don't even know who Arkansas is going to have back for sure. I mean, who's coming back and who's not? Is Traylon Smith coming back? Don't know. Bumper Pool coming back? Don't know yet. We don't know who's coming back for who. And I still say this, Arkansas is going to have a problem next year at the linebacker spot. And one of the keys to the success the last 2 seasons has been having some experienced linebackers who could make the defense work what Barry Odom designed. They're not going to have experience at linebacker next year. If Bumper Pool comes back, he will have more experience than everybody else playing that position combined times 2.
Well, I do think there's one thing that we can almost guarantee. I expect both teams to be ranked starting next year, if for nothing else, so that they can say that they've got a ranked on ranked game to start the season.
I hope so. That way it's not an 11 a.m. start. I hate 11 a.m. games.
We got plenty of them this year. I got to see so many of them. Even the bowl games in the 11 a.m. type slot.
Of course, yeah. Hey, our All Hogs photographer is in Tampa, ready to shoot. We will have it all. So, hey, I'm ready to tee it up.
All right. Well, we're going to go watch the Georgia game, and maybe we'll talk about it a little bit tomorrow when we talk about the Outback Bowl and how that turned out. But for right now, for Andy Hodges, I'm Kent Smith. Thank you for joining us at the SlopHouse. Have a good New Year's for you.